Morning arrived softly in Thimblewick village. Dew glittered on the paths, and the bellflowers by the hedge made a quiet, sleepy hum. Luna's lantern sat by the window, catching the first golden light. The room felt calm and warm, like a blanket made of sunshine. Luna stepped into the cool morning air with her lantern in hand. The grass was damp, and the breeze smelled like mint and wet stone. In the quiet market square, something strange floated by. It looked like a tiny ribbon made of cloud, glowing softly as it drifted. Luna held out her hand very slowly. The cloud thread tickled her fingers like cool cotton, and it gave off a faint, sweet scent like rain. Kai hurried down the lane with his tiny orange fox trotting beside him. They both spotted the glowing thread and lifted their faces to watch it dance. The fox sniffed and gave a small excited wiggle. The air felt busy, as if the wind was trying to tell a secret. Luna showed Kai the cloud thread, and it curled gently around her finger. Together they noticed it tugging toward the far trees, like it wanted to lead the way. At the edge of the village, the path changed from stone to earth. The glowing thread drifted forward, patient and steady, as if it knew where to go. Luna and Kai started walking, side by side. Luna's lantern swayed with each step, and the cloud thread floated ahead like a gentle guide. Their footsteps made soft sounds on the damp path. Leaves brushed their legs, and tiny drops of dew sparkled, then fell like little beads. Fernfrost Woods waited quietly, full of light beams and soft mist. The trees stood tall and kind, and the air felt cool on the cheeks. They stepped under the leafy roof of the woods. The cloud thread slipped between ferns, and the birds overhead chirped as if cheering them on. The forest path curled like a ribbon through green ferns. Sunlight warmed the ground in bright patches, and the mist began to fade away. The cloud thread snagged on a bramble, and Luna knelt down. She gently freed it, and the soft glow pulsed once, like a thankful blink. Kai bounded forward, and his fox companion hopped neatly over a root. Dry leaves rustled under their feet, making a cozy crackly sound. The fox stopped and listened with perked ears. A small breeze slipped through the trees, carrying a whispery sound like cloth fluttering far away. Luna gathered the cloud thread into a loose coil so it wouldn't drift away. Kai noticed a brighter clearing ahead, and they walked toward it together. The clearing glowed under the late morning sun. Tiny insects shimmered in the air, and somewhere nearby, water sang a quick, bright song. They followed the sound of water, stepping through tall grass. The cloud thread drifted forward again, as if it could smell the creek before they could see it. The path grew smoother, and the air felt warmer. Through the trees, the creek flashed silver, winking at them between the trunks. Pebblewing Footbridge stretched over a clear, quick creek. Sunlight danced on the water, and the reeds whispered as they swayed. They stepped onto the bridge, and the boards creaked in a friendly way. The cloud thread floated over the railing, tugging toward the far bank. Below them, the creek bubbled over smooth pebbles. A little swirl spun in place, as if the wind had lost its way and was searching. Luna leaned over the railing, careful and steady. The breeze lifted her silver hair, and she watched the water swirl, listening to its quick, splashing voice. On the far side, Kai found a little knot of twigs and old string caught on a post. The fox tapped it gently, and it wobbled like it wanted to come loose. Kai pulled out a tiny wooden spool with a cloud carved on it. It felt warm from the sun, and it matched the soft glow of the cloud thread. They met in the middle of the bridge and compared their treasures. The cloud on the spool looked just like the cloud thread, and both of them felt a gentle tug to keep going. Across the creek, a grassy slope rose to a round opening under tangled roots. Bluebell leaves framed it like a doorway into a secret. They crossed to the far bank and headed up the slope. The cloud thread drifted toward the round opening, and their steps slowed, careful and quiet. The ground turned cool and shaded under the roots. Little stones crunched softly, and Luna's lantern caught the last bright sun before the dark. Inside the Burrow tunnels, the world became quiet and close. Bluebell roots dangled like soft curtains, and tiny crystal flecks winked in the clay walls. Luna raised her lantern, and its warm light filled the tunnel. The cloud thread glowed brighter too, and their footsteps echoed like quiet drumbeats. The tunnels split and curved, making gentle little arches. A soft draft moved the dust motes, and the crystals twinkled like underground starlight. Luna held the cloud thread close to the lantern. It stretched toward one tunnel, like a tiny finger pointing the safest way. Kai and his fox explored a side tunnel where cool air slipped in. The fox sniffed at a crack in the wall, and Kai felt the breeze and smiled. The fox wriggled close and found a thin line of daylight. A few crumbs of clay fell, and the fresh air smelled like warm grass outside. Luna and Kai held the spool and cloud thread between them. The thread lifted toward the breeze, and together they chose the tunnel that led upward. The tunnel sloped up like a gentle hill. The air grew brighter ahead, and the dust motes floated slowly, calm and sleepy. They climbed toward the light, step by step. The cloud thread fluttered faster now, as if it could finally see the sky again. Their fingers slid along the cool clay for balance. The light ahead turned bright and sunny, and little pebbles rolled softly behind them. Sunspool Hills opened wide under the afternoon sky. The grass rippled like waves, and the shadows grew longer, stretching gently across the trail. They stepped into warm afternoon air and blinked at the brightness. The cloud thread floated above the trail, pulling them up the hills with a soft, steady tug. Far ahead, a windmill stood on the ridge like a friendly giant. The seed heads brushed together, making a hush-hush sound as the warm wind passed. Luna walked carefully, feeling the breeze touch her cheek. The cloud thread rested in her palm, light as a feather, and it seemed to hum along with the wind. Kai carried the little spool proudly while his fox trotted through the grass. Their shadows stretched beside them, and the air smelled like sun-warmed hay. Seed fluff floated around the fox's nose, and it shook its head briskly. The fluff drifted away like tiny golden feathers. From the rise, they could see the windmill clearly. The cloud thread stretched forward like it wanted to be connected to something waiting up there. A gust bent the grass, then suddenly the air went quiet. In the distance, the windmill blades slowed and gave a small, worried stutter. They hurried up the trail as the wind faded. The cloud thread streamed behind Luna's hand, and both children knew something needed help. Stone steps led them higher, and the light grew more golden. A faint creak from the ridge sounded like the windmill was calling softly. At the top stood Skyloom Windmill, looking tired and still. Its cloth streamers drooped, and the blades barely moved in the late afternoon glow. They stepped onto the platform and heard the wood creak under their feet. The cloud thread lifted toward a torn, sky-colored kite cloth tangled near the gears. The windmill had a special kite frame tied to a windline, meant to catch breezes and share them. But the cloth was ripped, and the wind had nowhere to hold on. Luna touched the torn edge, and it felt dry and tired. She held the cloud thread like precious yarn, ready to mend what the wind could not. Kai and his fox worked near the gears where a rope had jammed. The rope creaked as it loosened, and the fox planted its paws like a tiny helper. The fox tugged a knot free and hopped back quickly. The rope slid into place with a soft snap, like a puzzle piece finally fitting. Luna held the cloth steady while Kai guided the spool. The cloud thread stretched across the tear in neat, glowing stitches, and the kite cloth looked stronger with every careful pull. A small breeze arrived and nudged the kite frame upward. The streamers twitched, but the windmill still hesitated, like it needed one more gentle push. Together they guided the kite frame toward open air. The cloud thread shimmered along the seam, and the cloth fluttered with a brighter, happier sound. The wind finally found a good grip. The repaired cloth billowed smooth and full, and the glowing seam held strong in the warm sunset colors. The blades began to turn, slow at first, then steady and sure. Streamers lifted and danced, and the air around them felt alive again. Skyloom Windmill stood tall against the sunset, working happily once more. The kite frame soared like a skybird, sharing the breeze across the hills. Luna stood quietly and felt the wind brush her face. It was soft and friendly now, like a hand smoothing a wrinkled blanket. Kai stretched his arms wide, letting the breeze push gently against him. The fox leaned forward too, enjoying the wind that finally felt right. Kai wrapped the leftover cloud thread neatly on the spool. The carved cloud gleamed, as if it had found its home again. Luna and Kai tucked the spool into a little box to keep it safe. The windmill creaked warmly, and the sunset grew deeper and softer. Across the hills, the grass began to ripple again in wide, happy waves. Birds glided smoothly, and the sky turned pink and lavender like painted silk. As evening came, they started down the path. Luna lit her lantern for the growing dusk, and its warm glow made the world feel cozy. They walked in the last orange light, their steps slow and calm. The evening breeze was cooler now, and it carried the gentle sound of turning blades behind them. Sunspool Hills grew quiet as twilight settled in. A few stars peeked out, and tiny fireflies began to glow like floating lanterns. Luna's lantern painted a warm circle on the path. Kai stayed close, and together they followed the trail downhill, listening to the grass whisper. Fireflies drifted slowly, lighting little dots in the darkening air. The seed heads looked silver now, and the trees ahead waited like a quiet doorway. Luna warmed her fingers on the lantern for a moment. The light felt gentle, and the evening air smelled like cool grass and faraway flowers. Kai's fox padded back to his side, moving like a little shadow with a bright tail tip. Crickets began their nighttime song, steady and soft. The fox looked up at the lantern, its eyes shining like tiny coins. A firefly hovered close, and the two lights seemed to greet each other. At the trees, they slowed and listened to the night. The lantern glow sat between them like a small campfire, and they chose the familiar path back. They stepped into the forest as the sky turned darker blue. Fireflies trailed behind them, and the lantern swung gently, lighting the way. Lantern light glided over roots and ferns, making soft shadows. Night dew began to form again, and the forest smelled clean and cool. Fernfrost Woods looked different at night, calm and silver. Moonlight slipped between the birches, and mist returned in quiet little puddles of air. They walked slowly now, a little tired in a happy way. The warm lantern glow and cool moonlight mixed together like two gentle colors of paint. The footbridge waded over the creek, and the water reflected the moon like a bright coin. The reeds swayed softly, making a sleepy hush. They crossed the bridge again, careful and quiet. The creek sang beneath them, and the boards creaked as if saying, "Welcome back." On the far side, the path to the village felt familiar. The night air was cool and clean, and their steps stayed close together. They followed the lane where flowers folded up for sleep. Ahead, a few cottage windows glowed warmly, and the stars watched quietly from above. Thimblewick village was peaceful under the moon. The bellflowers shimmered softly, and the whole village seemed to breathe slow, sleepy breaths. They reached the market square where the adventure began. A gentle, steady breeze moved through, just like it was supposed to, and it felt like a quiet thank you. At Luna's door, warm light spilled out like honey. She lowered her lantern, and the day felt complete and safe. Kai stopped at his own doorstep, and his fox leaned close. The night felt friendly, and the quiet wind brushed past like a lullaby. Inside, the room was warm and still. The lantern glowed on the table, and the quilt on the bed looked soft enough to hold all the dreams in the world. Luna sat on her bed and let her shoulders relax. The lantern light flickered gently, like it was getting sleepy too. Outside the window, the moon shone on the rooftops. The breeze moved the ribbons in slow waves, and somewhere far away, the windmill kept turning. Luna snuggled under her quilt, warm from chin to toes. The lantern dimmed to a tiny glow, and the room became very calm. The lantern's light grew smaller and softer. Everything felt slow and safe, the way bedtime is meant to feel. Thimblewick village slept under a sky full of stars. The wind moved gently through the hedges, and the world seemed to whisper, "All is well." Luna's eyes grew heavy, and her breathing slowed. In the quiet, she felt proud and peaceful, like a small hero wrapped in softness. The lantern went out, and moonlight took over, pale and gentle. The curtain swayed once, then rested, and Luna drifted into sleep as the night stayed kind.